Welcome to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com, RockAuto.com, and by DieHard. Here's your MotorWeek podcast host, John Davis.
Thank you, Alec Webb, and welcome to everyone to MotorWeek podcast number 114. I am John Davis, and joining me today in Studio C is our writer and two-wheeling producer, Brian Robinson.
Hello, John.
Our assistant producer, Greg Carlos.
Hey, hey.
Our over-the-edge reporter, Zach Mescal.
Hello, world.
And we've got a lot to cover today. We have a lightning round, a viewer question, but first, more cars. That's our stock and trade. Two more cars that we had the pleasure of taking to Roebling Road near Savannah, our winter testing facility, in late January that we're just now getting on the air. We're going to talk about two of those. We've got a car that we're going to talk about back home, a MINI Cooper S Hardtop four-door. And we've got a couple of quick spins coming up that Zach and Greg are going to get in on because they've been to the previews. Let's start, though, with, frankly, a car that a lot of people probably thought was a bit of a sleeper, but it shows just how far this brand has come in performance, and that's the 2015 Lexus RC F. This is their coupe, and the top coupe. A lot of people will probably see the RC 350 and the F Sport, but this is their top-rung M-like car. What do you think? Impressed? Not impressed?
I was impressed with it. I liked it, and actually, I think a lot of it has to do with that color. We had an orange color that was actually really flattering on that car, and
which is saying something.
Yeah, it just made it look really good.
It wasn't quite McLaren orange, but it was
but it was a good orange. I'll say that. But yeah, it was just surprisingly good on the track, and I was expecting it to feel a little bit heavy. It didn't necessarily feel that way, and the naturally aspirated V8. I mean, we're kind of in the world of turbos and superchargers now. It's kind of cool to have something that breathes its own air. But I thought it handled itself really well on the track.
Yeah, I would agree. I was impressed by it, especially like the V8. I mean, it's kind of a continuation of the SF sedan, which I think was kind of underrated. I thought they did a really good job with that. And this is just that same engine with more power, better suspension, smaller car, and a lot more electronic doodads to help it out.
Like Greg said, it didn't feel as heavy as it is. It's a heavy car.
Yeah, it's about 4,000 pounds.
Yeah, and but I mean, the thing stops when you want it. 6-piston Brembos up front, 4 in the rear, and this one seems to be more tame than the M4, actually.
I was going to ask you if anybody want to make any comments about M4, because that's obviously the target that a lot of people will compare it to.
Yeah, it's way better to drive on the street than the M4. I don't know. They're close. I would have to drive them like back to back on the same track the same day to really say, which is better.
But that's amazing. That we actually say something like that, and that just shows you how close some of the other brands have gotten to this BMW mystique now.
I mean, the M3 Coupe at the time went away from the V8, and now this one's got a V8. I like the Turbo 6 in the M4, but the V8 in the RCF is pretty nice too. So
yeah, that's good stuff. And they, you had made a comment. I remember when we were sitting in the pits before I drove it. You had the differential in was it street mode, or it wasn't in its aggressive setting, and you said you turned it on and it was a whole different experience, which I kept it. After hearing that, I kept it in track mode, or I can't remember what exactly
it was
it's
track.
called.
Yeah, there's track, slalom, and I think just normal.
And you said the normal was a little tail happy.
Yeah, I mean, it feels like a whole different car. It's just it's kind of a torque vectoring rear. It sends power to the outside wheel to kind of help you lay power down instead of.
It obviously works.
Yeah, I think it works great.
And, I think when the ISF came out, we all didn't believe it. I think we maybe even thought it was a fluke, or they wouldn't follow up on it, like so many manufacturers don't follow up when they do something really interesting like that. But Lexus has, and even when you look at their more mainstream models like that, the little NX crossover, pretty much more hardcore than you would expect, or at least available in a trim that's more hardcore than you would expect from Lexus. And they say their coming RX crossover is going to take the same route, so we'll see.
And they got GSF sedan.
GSF sedan, which we just saw unveiled. And that, now you talk about a heavy car, that's a heavy car. But that's going to be very interesting to drive. Okay, I've sort of been holding this one back, but here's one that was a terrific treat for us to have a chance to spend some time at Roebling.
It's a good one.
And the 2015 Lamborghini Huracan, or Hurricane for those that don't know how to pronounce it like me. Okay, this was Lamborghini's new baby, replacing the Gallardo. What do you think? Or Gallardo, sorry.
It's Baby Gallardo, man.
Yeah.
V10 sound. I actually got to experience one on one of my latest over-the-edge runs in California.
Do you think it felt that much different than a Gallardo?
I'd have to say no. But granted, I don't have much experience with the Gallardo either. I can tell you one thing for sure. I think it looks better. It just looks so good.
Yeah.
It's got a lower front end.
It's just better looking.
Much more Aventador than Gallardo, because when you first look at it, you might think it's an Aventador, but then there's a few subtle differences.
Like the doors.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, we've had it on track before. We talked about it some, but, its roots go back to the Audi R8, so it's super easy to drive. You can't overstate how easy it is to drive. I mean,
amazing transformation with Lamborghini over the last few years, especially since Audi has been, if not owner, at least guiding. The cars are quite refined now.
Yeah, anytime you get in $250,000 worth of car, at least I get nervous. But within a couple laps, that kind of melts away, and you start pushing the thing like crazy.
The car was every bit as competent on the track as I think we thought it was going to be going in. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, for sure.
It's and it's got a sound that you just associate with racing. I mean, when you're at the track, most cars aren't going to sound like that. Granted, they sound good. It's always fun hearing an exhaust and engine from a car, but specifically this. I'm not even going to say the word because I don't want to butcher it.
Come on, man.
Huracan.
But yeah, just everywhere on the track, man. It was just a real pleasure to listen to that thing rev, and it was a very good oral experience.
Red line, that's just beautiful.
But the sound inside and outside the car. I mean, standing in the pits and watching you guys go by full throttle, it was almost as exciting as being in the car. It just sounds so great. So anyway, I hope you'll live vicariously through us for the Huracan road test, because it was a real treat. The car is spectacular, and frankly, everything you've read about how well it behaves is true. Okay, moving on back to the real world. Recently, we had a chance to get inside the new MINI Cooper S Hardtop 4-door. And this is really a first-time model for them in a way. It sort of replaces the Clubman, which was that weird little 3-door hatch they had. What do you think, folks? Have they managed to put 4 doors on the hardtop without spoiling it? Or
yeah, I don't know if we made it all the way back to the real world yet or not, because I would not.
This is not real world. I don't want to be in this world.
Yeah. I mean, they're fun to drive, as they always been, and this car certainly is. But yeah,
is it too small for you?
It's too rough. It's too.
That was the S.
God forbid you had potholes.
It's too quirky.
Yeah.
It's just, there's too much of it inside. Yes, I
you don't
can
like
fit,
all the little
Stop
switches
beating me over the head with it.
No, yeah, it's just as soon as you get inside of it, you just, for me anyway, I ask where this is, where that is. I mean, the infotainment.
Is it the eclectic nature of it that gets you? I mean, because it is unlike anything else on the road on the inside.
I guess so, but I even gave it the chance, and I went down back roads, got on the highway, and I couldn't live with it.
So you didn't enjoy driving it?
Not so much. I mean, at first I thought, oh, wow, great clutch, very smooth transmission, nice acceleration. But then once you do more than that, I don't know, just steers me away from it.
Yeah, I have to admit, of course, I am a first-generation New Cooper owner, and I actually loved it. I didn't like the second-generation car, but I love this one. I like the standard motor better than the S, just if I had to live with it every day.
But getting back to the whole 4-door, there's a little more room back there, but not much.
Not much.
It's.
I think it's nice if you've got pets. It's easier to load them, or
if you're
maybe
just like
kids.
throwing a book bag in the back or something. You don't have to push the seat forward. So in that aspect, it's good. But if we go back to driving it, I think I can understand where Zach's coming from. You kind of have to go into it, I feel, like with the mindset of driving aggressively to enjoy the car. If you're just going in like trying to go to the grocery store, you're not going to have a good experience because every little bump you hit, you're going to feel it. God forbid you hit a pothole or anything like that. But I mean, as far as a performance-oriented car, I mean, you can
little hatchback,
right? You get good performance out of it, which is the best thing of it for me.
What about the obvious question? I mean, there are more competitors out there now, and now that Mini's gotten bigger and more expensive, GTI is the first one that comes to everybody's mind.
GTI, Fiesta ST,
yeah, I mean, there's
Focus
a
ST.
lot. They don't have this market to themselves.
Yeah, unless you really want a Mini, there's no way I would buy this car over a GTI. I mean, GTI is enjoyable to drive, comfortable, more room. And Minis get expensive very quick. Oh yeah, the one we had was 35, mid 30s.
Yeah, I do like Minis. I own one. I'm appalled at how expensive they've gotten, but they must be doing something right because they've got a huge following.
If you like what Mini has done and what they're doing, then it'll be perfect for you. I'm not going to steer you away from that car.
And I do like this third generation. I think this chassis is the best one they've done. And this is a chassis, of course, that parent BMW is going to get a lot of use out of too.
Yeah, and most of the things we were complaining about, like you said, if you stick with the regular Cooper, you get a better ride. You get the i3 Turbo, which I think is plenty of power for that car. It's a more enjoyable overall.
That was the car I spent most of my time in, and I must admit I enjoyed it a lot. And it was the first Mini that I've driven that I thought I would consider replacing my 2002 with. Okay, let's move on to a couple of quick spins. These are the results of a couple of our members here at the table going to some of the press events, so we haven't had the vehicles in here at work yet. Zach, let's start with you. 2015 BMW 2 Series convertible. This car
Definitely seems a little bit more grassroots. It kind of reminds me of a modern E46. So it's just the way it drives, and then you can upgrade to the M suspension. It's rear-wheel drive. You can get the, I think it's 8-speed automatic than 6-speed manual. Just really enjoyable. And the convertible itself, they told me that, you know, it's a lot more sound deadening materials and this and that, and we got on the road and that was very true. The convertible drives like a sedan as far as sound goes, and then you put the top down and you can still have a conversation just fine on the highway.
Yeah, this is to me a very important car because for many years before the 3 Series got so large, and before all the name changes, the 3 Series convertible was like the quintessential 4-place convertible. Everything else was measured against that. Do you think this car is going to be like the new benchmark in that aspect?
I think that this one's actually replacing the 1 Series, but I definitely feel, yes, it probably will be the new benchmark car because this is
for a smallish, compact convertible, whatever.
Right. This is going to appeal to a lot of people. And especially once they get in and drive it, it's just everything's easy to use. And, the car just drives how you want it to.
Is it still like 220? Like, can you get a M235i convertible, or is it? Because didn't they do it 228i? You get the 4-cylinder,
right.
And then I think if you wanted 6, if you wanted to go to the 6, you had to get the M235.
I believe that's correct. Yeah.
Is it the same way with the convertible?
That I don't know, because I wasn't even sure that they were going to make a 228 convertible. So,
So what did you drive?
The convertible.
The 228.
You drove the 228, so you don't know if. So right off the top of our heads, we don't know if there's a 4, but I bet there is.
And that's another thing. When are they going to fix the naming scheme again? Because
please.
It should be a 2.8, but it's a 2 liter. I don't know if they're ever going to switch away from it because they've gotten so much use out of them.
Yeah. I don't know. Well,
it's crazy.
If we go back to what they really started, it used to be those 2NAS numbers really told you everything about the engine you needed to know. Not anymore.
Yeah, not anymore.
Okay, moving on. To a little bit higher level vehicle, 2016 Bentley Mulsanne Speed Greg.
I think you could put a 2 Series convertible in the trunk.
Yeah, probably. That car is massive. But actually, I was down in Austin for that one, and it coincided with the Pirelli World Challenge. They started that season. So we were at COTA, Circuit of the Americas, and got to drive in the road in the back seat with Bentley's GT3 driver. And actually, it was pretty enjoyable on the track. It's a big car. It's not something that a Bentley owner is going to take to the track.
Nearly 6,000 pounds.
Yeah, it's almost 3 tons. But for something that big, it was pretty cool. But I thought most cars have gotten pretty quiet, and I thought like maybe this is probably the peak of that. But getting into this one, it was super, super quiet. I mean, you couldn't hear hardly anything. Yeah, it was crazy quiet. But yeah, with the speed, they still use that. They call it the 6 3/4 liter, 6.75 twin turbo V8. They've upped it up to like 530 horsepower, but like 810 pound-feet of torque, which is crazy. But it doesn't hit you all at once. Yeah. So you don't feel it like a real 810 pounds, but.
I love the fact that they've actually, gone and taken Bentley back to its roots of performance instead of just being, like it was for decades, just sort of like almost a poor man's Rolls Royce. Since the ownership was split up, their cars are phenomenal performance.
Yeah,
cars.
They really are. I mean, especially the Continental GT. I like the V8 because of the a little bit less weight in the front.
Too.
But yeah, it's just, and they've extended it here. Another difference with the speed is you get a more adaptable suspension. So they call it charisma modes instead of sport modes, and they don't even have like a normal setting. It's called Bentley, Comfort, Sport, and Custom. So Bentley would be the normal setting, but and actually, while there's not a huge difference between any of them, you definitely have to be in the right one if you're going to actually push your $400,000 Bentley around.
So that'd be one of your Powerball cars?
If I won?
Yeah.
It's a tough question. You know what? Why if I'm gonna get a Bentley, probably because I would let my chauffeur and all my other house workers drive that car and drive me around in it.
You got to let somebody drive you around in the Bentley?
In this one, yeah. I mean,
oh my.
Take a nap in the trunk.
And you can get the iPads in the back that fold down, and you've got a little work station back there. And if you get tired of working, you've got a refrigerator in the back with some glasses for you. So
I don't know, man. It's something like a piece of machinery like that to let somebody else drive it for me. I guess I'll never have that experience anyway. All right, thanks, guys. All right, let's move on to our lightning round. Our crowd here has 2 minutes to debate trending automotive topics. When the time is up, they'll hear this. Thank you, Greg. Now, you must have read or even heard here on MotorWeek that Ferrari has recently been unseated as the most powerful brand name in the world, and that's according to a research poll measuring brand loyalty and consumer familiarity and recognition. That honor now goes to a non-automotive brand, Lego. Now, the prancing horse has actually fallen now to number 10. People have been saying it for years. Do you think this shows more of the trend that people are starting to fall out of favor with cars, or I should say cars are falling out of favor with people? Are we moving away from the automotive desire that, say, I grew up with? What do you think?
I'm kind of biased. I would say no. I think this particular instance is a little bit more of a testament to Lego than the loss of interest in the cars, because Lego has actually gotten pretty crazy lately with their movies, and I think they've really done. I mean, this isn't a toy show, but kudos to Lego for really
the movie was a big hit,
optimizing their brand. But I don't think so. I think people are still in the cars. It's just. This just doesn't necessarily look good for cars, but I think people are still into them. I mean, Ferrari's still a great, great brand to recognize.
Yeah, I wouldn't read too much into it. It was just based on some stupid survey. And
you hear that survey, people? It was stupid.
I'm sure your job's important. I don't want to say it's not, but I mean, Ferrari's an aspirational brand that very few people ever get to experience. Lego is a brand that every single person in the world has had some experience with. So it goes without saying it's going to be a more powerful brand.
Yeah, I mean, there are a lot of brands that have nothing to do with automobiles that are very strong. Coca-Cola is another one. But on the other hand, I continually read that Jeep is actually the most recognizable automotive brand. So I guess it depends on exactly what question that you want to survey to ask.
It's simple in Ferrari's case. Just pair up with Lego now and make some Lego Ferraris.
The broader question about whether or not younger generations are less automotive inclined, I guess there's plenty of proof that cars are not as popular with 20-somethings as maybe with their parents. But some of that has to do, in my opinion, with the debt load that they're carrying from colleges. If you're living in a city, as a lot of young people out of universities do for jobs, it's almost prohibitive to keep a car. So I'm wondering, when they have families and move out to the suburbs, if some of those pent-up demands for cars won't
I don't know.
back.
In some ways, I think they're even more into cars just because of all the video games. I mean, my kid's only 11, and he knows a lot more about some of these exotic.
You're bringing him up correctly.
He knows more about some of the European brands that we don't even get here that I know because he races them on games. And he's like, "Have you driven this one?" I'm like, "I've never heard of that."
Well, we talked about the GTR in a previous podcast, and I think GTR is probably almost as well known for its video games as it is for as a performance car on the street.
When people were driving that in Jeep Gran Turismo with Skylines, I think that's part of the reason it got so popular, and Nissan ended up bringing it over here.
Well, I guess we kind of wore that one out. Thanks, Greg.
All
right, let's talk to a viewer, or talk from a viewer question. Ron. Very nice, Ron. Thank you. He says he loves the show, and I appreciate that very much. We all do. But he wants to know, and I got to tell you, Ron, I got a problem with your question. But here we go.
I appreciate you, but I got
why are cars bigger on the outside?
He says that to us all the time, Ron. So don't feel bad.
Don't take it to heart. Why are cars bigger on the outside but less roomy inside compared to those from decades before? Boy, that's not my experience, but I have an idea what he's talking about. I mean, most every car we see cars continue to grow outside, but there's usually more room than the predecessor inside. What do you think he means by that?
I feel like it's almost the other way around.
Yeah.
In my opinion. I look at it and be like, oh, that's too small, and I get in it, and I'm like, oh, I got plenty of room in here.
I wonder if what he's talking about is that when you get into the front seat, say take the average family sedan, every time one comes out they say there's more rear seat legroom, and we've done it within the same length or whatever, or maybe it's grown a fraction of an inch. They do seem these days to be putting a lot more room in the rear seats and sometimes not making the front seat room any larger. And so if you just get into the driver's seat or front passenger, I don't think you can appreciate the extra room. So
I don't know. The cars have gotten smaller on the outside. I mean, 70s, 50s boats. I mean, come on. But as far as inside, I think you can all trace it back to safety. I mean, there's airbags all around you now.
All that extra padding.
They take up space. Everything's got there's no bench seats anymore. Everything's got a huge center console. They want you in a very specific spot so that if you're ever in an accident, you'll be safe. They don't want you moving around that cabin at all. And that's, there might be more room in there numbers wise, but as far as the room you have to move about in your seat is much less because of that.
We notice here at the show also that if a manufacturer puts a little too much bolstering into a non-performance car, that you end up feeling like you're pinned in, and yet when you go look at the volume statistics, they're up. So I guess all I can say, Ron, is go to an auto show and start hopping in a lot of vehicles and get in the back seats and move around through the entire vehicle and see whether you still you feel that way about the question. But to kind of paraphrase what Zach said, it does seem like to us maybe a little bit the other way around. Yeah. Cars are.
I think just the basic answer for that one would just be safety, because whenever you ask an a manufacturer why you did this, why you did that,
that's their
9 times out of 10 they're like safety.
That's like so. Next question.
You can't argue.
Yeah, you can't argue with it. And there is no arguing that we are out of time. So I want to thank very much our panelists sitting around the table, our writer and two-wheeling producer Brian Robinson, our assistant producer Greg Carlos, and over-the-edge reporter Zach Maskell. Also our audio engineer Jim Bigwood, who always does a masterful job of mastering the audio controls. Podcast creator Bob Mixter. And our podcast producer, who's not here today, but he's off somewhere enjoying himself, Patrick Lucas. Thank you, Patrick. All right, everyone, we thank you very much for spending time with us on our MotorWeek podcast and for watching MotorWeek on virtually all the public TV stations around the country. And if you miss us there, you can check us out on the Velocity Cable channel. Till next time, I'm John Davis. For all of us at MotorWeek, thanks for watching and listening to MotorWeek.
You have been listening to the podcast of MotorWeek, television's original automotive magazine. MotorWeek is made possible by TireRack.com, RockAuto.com, and by Die Hard. For additional information on podcasts, videos, and showtimes, visit our website at MotorWeek.org. And watch MotorWeek, television's longest-running automotive magazine series each week on your local PBS station.